Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to do another character review for you guys. And I thought we did She-Hulk the first time, but now I just have this throbbing in my heart. I have this ache. I gotta get this out, guys. We gotta talk about my main man, Ronan. Obviously the best character in Future Fight, if you didn't know. Easily the most OP character in the game, and that's why I got him to tier 2, because he's just secretly the best player in the game. You know, if there's any way that you want to just cheese the game from the beginning, just go to Ronan, man. He's like Rona. They're like the Home Depot people. They're just like the best. But in all seriousness, guys, I do want to have a character review for Ronan today, not because he's the best, he's far from it, but because he's my best. A little bit of a corny backstory, cue the cheesy music, cue the Celine Dion. Ronan is basically the character that I have invested the most time into and the most kind of fervent farming for. Way back when they first introduced the Guardians of the Galaxy members, when they first introduced the characters to the game, I immediately latched onto Ronan, not because I'm a fan of him in the comics. I honestly haven't read many comics with Ronan front and center. Just as a side player, I don't know a lot about Ronan, and I didn't know a lot about the character in the comic books until the Guardians of the Galaxy movie and subsequent Future Fight update. But as a gaming fan and as someone who likes to be efficient and be, try to go for the best possible strategy, I was just, locked on to his leadership. When I immediately saw his leadership, I thought this is going to be one of the most broken characters in the game, or the closest to the most broken in the game. And if you want to get ahead, if you want to be at the top, you got to look for these kinds of things. And I thought at the time that it was the best way to go, and so I invested all my energy into farming his special missions. I got him to 6 stars and 6 mastery as fast as I could, ahead of other characters, ahead of characters like Loki. This is before he got his 6-star skill, but still. In hindsight, obviously I didn't make the right choice, but you cannot anticipate where a mobile game is going to go in terms of updates and stuff like that. But I'm still happy with the fact that I chose him, and I don't even care that he isn't the best tier 2 character, because he's pretty good at what he does, and what he does is pretty fitting for my play style. So that's kind of the backstory, guys, on why I tier 2'd Ronan and why I invested so much in a character that a lot of people think is just trash or just used for his leadership. It is true that he's basically most well known or most usable for his leadership, but it's hard to knock him for his leadership when there's only one character in the game who has a better leadership than him, and that's Thanos. So, if you invested in the second best leadership in the game, it's not something to be sad or kind of something to scoff at. But anyways, guys, enough of me yapping. Let's get into the character, guys. We're going to go through a full review today. I'm going to talk about all my thoughts on Ronan. Thank you for the Dimension Rift, Mike. And I'm going to give you all my thoughts, guys, and show you guys as many game modes as I can. This is going to be a long one, boys, so strap in. So, we're going to be talking about Ronan with the uniform. You can check out Ronan without the uniform if you just swap him out, but I'm not going to do that today because I just don't really care. But we are going to go through his full skill rotation. I'm going to give you guys a preferred skill rotation for both live and artificial fights. And then we're going to go through some of those to see how Ronan fares. Alright? So, Ronan's skills are as follows. His 1-star skill is this beam. It does a lot of hits. Let's see how many hits it does on one mob. It does 5 hits on one mob. It does good damage. Okay? And it does not have any tracking. It does have a pierce, so it'll go through a bunch of enemies as long as they're close enough to the laser. You can see those enemies at the back there are now taking the hit if I get close, but if I back off a little bit, they're not in the laser's path. But the laser does not have tracking, so you need to be very careful with when you use this 1-star skill, because sometimes you'll just blast it off into nowhere. Like, well, there's auto tracking, so I can't show you guys here. But anyways, his second skill does change with the uniform, but it's pretty cool with the uniform. He does 1, 2, 3 hits, and as you guys can see, there's a stun there. Obviously, the stun does not work on world bosses or the Frost Beast, but it will work in a lot of other areas where it is useful. So one more time, it's 1, 2, 3, and it's the stun gets applied immediately. So even if you cancel after the first hit, see, I canceled into the 1-star skill. I still get the stun. As long as the first hit lands, I still get the stun. So it's very useful. His 3rd star skill is very cool. It's got a pull and then a slam. The pull has that yellow and orange circle on the bottom of the enemy. That's called a snare. Okay, so someone like Modok, who's snare resistant, wouldn't get pulled in by this necessarily. But then also the second half of it has a fear effect. So as you can see, this guy's running away because he's been feared. It's similar to like Supergiant's fear mechanic on those giant black balls and other characters who have fear effects, like Venom, for example. Okay, his 5-star skill is pretty mundane, but it's okay. It's 1, 2, jump up and slam, and welcome to the jam. Come on and slam. Alright, I promised I wouldn't sing for you guys. Well, I actually never did that, but I'll promise you now that I won't sing again for you guys. But that's his 5-star skill. It's pretty simple, guys. The damage is pretty good. It's physical, whatever. Nothing to write home about. His last skill is quite interesting. It's obviously different with the uniform, and it's probably the one that has the biggest change with the uniform. 1, 2, 3, and then big 4th slam. So as you guys can see, this aura around Ronan is a 5-second aura. It doesn't show this in the skill preview, but it's actually 5 seconds of increased attack, and all defense. So we can see here at the top, 10% all attack, 10% all defense. And that number will go up if you raise the skill up. So mine is at max level, level 6. So it's giving me the most boost for 5 seconds that it can. Okay, this aura I believe is transferable, but the aura stays in place. So I'll show you guys when we get into some different team game modes. If I were to switch right now into another character, the aura would still be there and I would see the bonus being applied, but the aura itself doesn't move. So if my character runs out of the aura and then casts a skill, it won't have that buff. I have to stay in the zone where the aura was left by Ronan. Okay? So just as a general comment on Ronan's skills in general, of course there are no iframes, which sucks. Of course there's no native healing, which sucks. Okay. Of course there's no tracking on the 1-star skill, which also sucks. What's good for stuff like timeline and modes where stun effects and those kinds of effects do work, and what makes Ronan useful in some instances is that he has both a stun and a snare and a fear. Okay, and he also has a bit of a guard break with this skill. Now, a guard break is kind of a tricky thing to describe, but basically it's when your character does enough damage fast enough, it kind of applies like a mini stun to the opponent where they're interrupted from whatever skill they're casting. So I'll show you guys in timeline battle, but basically if Iron Man was casting his Unibeam or something like, maybe not Unibeam, but anyways, if Iron Man was casting one of his skills, but I was faster than him and I tapped this skill and I got my hits off quickly enough, then I would interrupt him and he would kind of just do like a hiccup and wouldn't cast the full duration of his skill, and I would then get the initiative on the next attack. So as you guys will see in timeline, it makes Ronan a pretty great character for cheesing out much more difficult and much stronger characters, because he can kind of essentially lock down opponents with these string of moves that I'm doing right here. But we'll get into it a little bit more in the timeline battle specifically. But those are his skills, guys. There's nothing too fancy. The animations look really cool, but of course there's no healing and there's no iframes, so this is pretty low tier in terms of skill kit. There is a self buff, which is pretty cool, but it only lasts for 5 seconds. Although Ronan does have very short cooldowns, so you will maybe be able to cast this every 9 or 10 seconds, or maybe 8 seconds if you have really good cards and alliances and stuff like that. So that's it for the character's skill review, guys. We're going to get into some game modes now, and then at the end I'll talk about ISO sets and Obelisk sets for Ronan. Okay, here we go. So we're going to first take him for a spin in World Boss, because that's probably where you guys want to see him most. I have no faith in him being able to clear this level, but we're going to try it anyways. I'm going to set him up with maybe the best team for him to succeed. We're going to do this team right here. Although there are no team bonuses, it does take advantage of Ronan's massive 36-36 leadership. Ebony Mod doesn't do that much damage with most of his basic attacks, so it should make Ronan last pretty long. We have Werewolf for the buff on Ronan, and then we have Groot with the uniform to heal Ronan when he gets down, so he doesn't get out. The good thing about Ronan in this situation is I can choose when hit strikers, because Ronan doesn't have any iframes, and Ronan is super tanky, so he will take a lot of hits from the world boss, and so that will trigger Sister Grimm a lot, where otherwise I wouldn't be able to trigger her. I'm not going to select Proxima because I want you guys to get as realistic display as possible, but I will select Moon Knight. Alright, don't hate me. Here we go, guys. So yeah, as I said before, because of Ronan's leadership and because of his 4-star passive ability, which creates a shield for him, an HP shield that you'll see pop up sometimes, he's extremely tanky. He's probably one of the tankiest characters in the game that has no native heal. He's probably, I would say he's way tankier than Groot, aside from the fact that Groot has that heal. So here we go. We're going to switch out. We're going to run around for a little bit so that Ronan comes off cooldown. And then we are going to pop this and then go back to Ronan, and then here we go. Let's unleash hell on this guy. So because Ronan's abilities do not snare or fear or stun the world bosses, there is no use for those skills specifically in terms of being able to kind of do any kind of crowd control damage or crowd control effects to the world boss. I'm just trying to stay as close to Ebony Maw as I can so I don't get hit by those giant pillar dicks, but as you guys can see, even I'm not very good at taking my own advice. But I don't know if you guys can tell, but Ronan's doing pretty good damage. Okay, we're into the second phase of his attacks. We're gonna have to rest here for the pillar dick assault, because otherwise Ronan will take an early rest into the next life. I'm gonna switch over to Groot here. I don't want to do any damage because I want you guys to see the full gamut of Ronan's abilities, but I am gonna use the heal here for Ronan because he needs it. Okay, don't want to get caught in those pillars. This is probably where Ronan's gonna struggle. He doesn't have a lot of AoE, and coupled with the pillar dicks, which he's going in his second phase for because he's being a dickhole. I wanted to get out of that. Yeah, Ronan's kind of slow as well, so the slowness combined with the mobs that Ebony Maw summons. Yeah, I can't even get out of that. That's really hilarious. Yeah, so okay, and there we go. Ronan's dead. So I probably could have gotten him a little bit further with Ronan, but as you guys can see, it's quite difficult. Ronan just doesn't have any native healing, and he needs a lot of support to be able to just face tank the enemy. So, you know, it would be easier for a character like Captain America or Shirog to face tank because they have built-in abilities that let them have damage immunity. And even a few seconds of damage immunity is really, really crucial because the bosses, all the world bosses actually, do a lot of sudden burst damage. Like you see there, 6,000. I took that about 3 times. From the world boss, so it's really important to have damage immunity on a tanky character. You know, without having the direct example for you guys, I would bet that Captain America Tier 2 would have lasted longer just tanking against Ebony Maw than Ronan, not because his leadership is better or any of that kind of stuff, but just because of that 4-second damage immunity that his uniforms offer. You know, it's really, really important. I'm just gonna play this one out, guys, because there is no exit button and I don't want to restart my client. Where's that exit button, Netmarble? Let's go. I mean, I know it's coming, so I'm kind of being cheeky, but yeah, so as you guys can see, or as you guys saw, Ronan's basically just a face tank hero. He plays really well into my playstyle because that's basically what I love to do, just face tank opponents and just go ham with all my skills. It's obviously not that useful for world boss because there's so much punishment from high damage dealing skills. If there was a way to, I don't know why I keep healing, I'm trying to end this game mode. If there was a way to negate some of that burst damage or dodge it a little bit more easily, you know, if I could build or if I could kind of artificially create an iframe for one of Ronan's skills, it would be hugely helpful. I think in the end Ronan did about half of Ebony Maw's damage or his HP. He did about 700,000, I believe. So that's pretty good. I'm sure that, or I'm not sure, but I think that if I tried it again under different circumstances with Ronan, I might be able to clear, but it's quite difficult with Ronan given that he has no native healing, so he requires a lot of help to buttress him up. Now we're going to do Villain Siege here, guys. I did also leave a Villain Siege level up for you guys. Yes, indeed. So we're going to go with not Thor. We're going to go with Ronan, and then where's Groot, and then just any third. It doesn't really matter. Vision. Obviously, I don't want to use the recommended heroes because I want those rolls for extra gold and Norn Stones and stuff like that. But we're just going to see how much damage he can do to the Villain Siege boss. It's really not that important. Villain Siege is not that difficult. But I thought I would give you guys the full gamut this time around. This one's a little bit more interesting because, as you guys can see, Yellow Jacket has a pretty difficult time getting out of Ronan's snares and stuns and fears. So I am in the corner, which does help me out here a little bit. But as you guys can see, with enough skill cooldown in the right game mode, because these things don't apply to world bosses, in the right game mode, i.e. Villain Siege, i.e. Timeline Battle, you can stun lock opponents. And so I'm not going to be able to do enough damage, judging by how much time has elapsed and how much damage I've already done. I'm not going to do enough damage to kill Yellow Jacket in this situation, but it is kind of hilarious to see the Villain Siege boss totally unable to move. Like, he's just done. As long as my fingers don't fall off, my hands don't suddenly carpal tunnel from years of, unsupervised gaming, then he's done. He's not going to be able to move. I'll be able to play out the time and do a considerable amount of damage, which is pretty hilarious. Obviously, this can be done with a tier 1 Ronan. Maybe I should have said that a little bit earlier in the video, but the tier 2 Ronan doesn't necessarily make this this stuff here, this stun locking, any more viable. The tier 2 status does not add to any of these stun effects. It just adds the dodge ignore, which is kind of useful for world boss, and it adds HP damage and other stat buffs, which are kind of par the course for any tier 2 character. So yeah, as you guys can see, this is kind of just 2 minutes of wacky waving arm inflatable tube man. He's just going ham fist and sandwich, and we did it pretty good. We did a respectable like 750,000 damage. Not bad, not bad. Even with the interruptions from the choo-choo trains and Thomas's tank engine blasting us in the face, we ended up doing, what is that, 180,000 minus a million? I don't know, guys. Math is hard. Get out your calculators. Find your favorite Asian friend and get them to figure that out for you. I'm not going to. I just wanted to show you guys. Here we go, timeline battle. Oh, I think I need to make a timeline team with Ronan. Another reason why I invested in Ronan so early in the game, guys, was because Ronan was like the king of timeline for leaderships way back in the day. He obviously isn't anymore. Thanos takes that prize, but he was once upon a time. And so when timeline battle was more fun for me and when I enjoyed it more, I really appreciated the fact that his leadership was so deadly and so threatening to other players. So we're gonna go here for the gold here. We're gonna try to Michael Phelps this mother, and we're gonna try to find a very high level team. I don't feel particularly frisky, but we're gonna see what we can pull, and I think I'm a little bit worried about Shirag, but let's try this. Okay, so we're gonna try to show you guys the stun lock effect that Ronan can do. There are other videos out there that can show you it a little bit more clearly, although they won't have my gross voice talking in the background. But it goes something like this. But we have to be wary of iframes because yeah, this is gonna get bad fast. No, don't do this, Sharon, please. Yeah, so if you get it right, guys, it's something like that. So the character kind of just stands there, but you have to be pretty quick. Of course, like that, if the character has an invincibility Obelisk, or if they have snare or stun or fear resist, it does kind of screw up the chain of attacks. But you guys can see, even with those situations happening, Ronan does pretty bonkers damage, and he takes pretty low anti-bonkers damage. So there you guys go. That's obviously on manual, so that's not a lot of impressive. That's not very impressive. Timeline battle is not a challenge by any means. But even a character like Ronan, who gets kind of shit on by the community for being, just a leadership horse and a bad character to tier 2, can still do work in timeline. We're gonna take on this team because it seems a little bit easier, and I'm gonna put this one back on auto and just show you guys what Ronan does when he's using his own autoplay attacks. It's not as good, but it's still pretty good. Keep in mind my Ronan is tier 2, so he does have a bit of an unfair advantage. But otherwise, we're just going to let it play out and see what Ronan does. Might lose this one, actually, just to Wasp. This 6-star skill is pretty good. So I got the I Am Also Groot to trigger. With a character like Ronan, because he's so tanky, we're going to talk about the Obelisks and ISO sets in a little bit, but because a character like Ronan is so tanky, I believe that it's better to play up his tankiness than to try and augment his other abilities. I could have rolled an offensive ISO set for Ronan to try and up his DPS, because his DPS is not that great. It's not bad, but it's not that great. It's kind of mid-tier. But I felt like increasing his survivability even more was going to be more useful for him in the long run, because it's his bread and butter. So kind of playing up a character's strengths in this situation, I believe, is more valuable than trying to mask their weaknesses, because Ronan is going to die anyways. But if we can prolong that a little bit, I think it's got more of an impact on his DPS than if we just try to crank his DPS but have him die faster. So that was on auto. He cleared it by himself, all kill. That was another reason why I really liked Ronan as my leader, because he was quite good at stun locking and just disrupting other players in timeline and netting me those all kill bonuses frequently. I'm not going to show you guys Battle World or Alliance Battle. Ronan's pretty good in Battle World because a lot of his attacks have like a small AoE, and his 3-star skill that does the pull and the snare will pull both of the enemies if they're close enough, so it's really good for disrupting. I think actually Ronan is quite good in Battle World, although, oh yeah, he can play in the male one, but whatever. Alliance Battle, he's pretty bad. He just uses a leadership for Loki for new players, and that's basically all he's good for. Again, no healing, no iframes make him quite hard to maneuver in the high levels of the Meteor Day or against Frost Beast after about 100,000 points, so it's nothing to write home about. So last but not least, guys, we're going to talk about ISO sets and obelisks. So right off the bat, obelisk or ISO sets, like I said before, went with a healing set. Okay, I think I Am Also Groot is the better of the healing sets because it does have the damage on it and the recovery rate that Stark Backing doesn't have, as well as the max HP recovery. I think this is just the best way to go about it. You don't want to go with a shield on a character like Ronan because of his 4-star skill. So you guys can see 5% rate when hit, and he creates an HP shield for 10 seconds. Now, if I had rolled an HP shield ISO set, those two would interfere with one another, and they wouldn't proc at the same time. And so what will happen is I'll basically lose one when another one procs if they proc within a short time of each other, like within 10 seconds of each other, which is pretty likely to happen. And so you definitely do not want to go with something like drastic density enhancement and stuff like that. You want to stay away from that stuff, especially for Ronan. So you definitely want to go with either an attack ISO set or a healing ISO set. I just feel like Ronan is so tanky that just making him more tanky is more useful. He's not going to be able to survive World Boss anyways for the most part, unless you totally build the team around him like you guys saw me doing with Werewolf and Groot. So you might as well just make him tankier so that he can survive other game modes for longer, timeline, stuff like that. As far as obelisks go, I just went again. I wanted to synergize with my ISO set, so I went with a recovery rate obelisk, and then there's got some random freeze effect. He's already got a snare, a stun, a fear, and a guard break. So the freeze, I guess, could be another additional disruptor in timeline. It's really not that useful otherwise. I guess if you had another obelisk on Ronan, you could put something like crit damage. You could also try something like increased mind damage, but keep in mind, no pun intended, that only one of his attacks has mind damage with his uniform. I believe that without his uniform, it increases to 2 skills that have mind damage. No, it's still just 1. So only one of his skills has mind damage, so it's really not that useful to have an obelisk with mind damage. But, you know, if you really want to, you can. I don't think many people will invest in Ronan that heavily, so I don't think it's that important. But those are just my thoughts. I would probably go with recovery rate, but you could go with a crit rate 1 because he does have a lot of multi-hit skills. So the crit rate will be more important there. Or you can go with something like mind damage. Alright guys, just obviously you farm his biometrics from the special missions. His special missions have a slowing field, so they're kind of annoying. But yeah, ultimately the reason why you would farm Ronan is for his leadership, to help characters like Loki, Thor, Groot with the uniform, etc. He's not a very good character for world boss. He's not reliable for alliance battle kills, so he's kind of, you know, relegated to the sidelines for the most part. It's not someone that I would recommend you invest in as your first or even your 10th character, but it's someone to kind of build up slowly in the background because they do definitely have their usefulness. And in the future, if Netmarble introduces a game mode or changes a game mode where the leadership is kind of very important, then it will make Ronan more relevant. So just keep that in mind, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed this game review or this character review today in this game. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you liked. Let me know what you disliked, if it was too long, if it was too short, if I should make more puns about mines. And of course, guys, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.